What makes you think NFTs in gaming are the future?
Well, it feels like those early days of live streaming. 15 years ago when I started off on the internet and we were building Justin TV, which is a company that turned into Twitch, there was a lot of experimentation on how are people going to interact on the internet. And today in crypto and NFTs particularly, it feels like there's all this experimentation on how are people going to regard and exchange value on the internet. And that's what's really exciting to me.
What does a successful game that uses NFTs look like in your vision?
Yeah, it looks like a game. I think that NFTs are the new business model of gaming. And in 10 years from now, we won't think of blockchain games or games with NFTs as something completely separate. We're going to see it as like, these are games that have assets and those assets are worth something. People trade them, they own them, they take them with them. And it's just going to be something that's kind of standardized. So today, if you look at the games that are most popular in the world, they all have virtual assets, right? They sell skins, characters. These are games like Fortnite that everybody's heard of or their kids play. And I think the next step in the evolution of these digital assets is that they're going to sit on a blockchain and people are going to really have ownership of them.
And yet there's a huge debate about the future of NFTs in gaming. A lot of folks in the gaming industry don't want this to be the future. Why do you think there's so much pushback?
It reminds me a lot of free-to-play. You and I were both kind of around when this came out. Free-to-play as a business model came out in gaming, maybe around 2007, 2008. And those early games in free-to-play were, they were like Zynga games like Farmville and Mafia Wars. And there was a lot of pushback from gamers then. They said, these games aren't great. They're not good. They're not fun. They're just viral, something viral. They're not, I don't want to pay like incrementally. I just want to pay up front. And then, what happened was there was more investment in the model. People built better games. People built games that they want to play in general. And then what happened was, 10 years later, now it's like every game is a free to play game and the market is worth like tens of billions of dollars a year in digital assets. And so I think the same thing is, can be said of crypto or crypto games. People are saying these games aren't good yet. They're, we don't need NFTs. Like this is not something that gamers want, but I think it's actually something that will become that predominant model as the games become better.
That said, where do you see hype in this industry, whether it's about NFTs or crypto or play to earn? I know you're not a huge fan of that in particular. I mean, are there technologies that you see getting a disproportionate amount of attention that shouldn't be?
Well, I think that the kind of fundraising, like the amounts that games are raising is capturing the imagination of both the game studios and players. And sometimes it's, people are like, oh, it's ridiculous that these games that haven't launched yet or have very rudimentary gameplay compared to like a AAA title in the traditional world, are raising hundreds of millions of dollars or like have these economies that are worth billions of dollars, and they think it's overhyped. And to some extent, that might be true. So I think that the fundraising aspect is a little bit overhyped. What's really exciting to me as a technologist is just this idea of like these games shifting from closed economies where, the game company controls everything to really open economies where there's an ecosystem of developers and players who, control what happens in the economy. And to me, that's going to inspire more people, like these games to become platforms on top of which many different developers build experiences. And these open ecosystems, I think, are going to be like much more durable and worth a lot more in the future.
Now, we're seeing a fight to own the future of DeFi among venture capitalists and bigger players like Jack Dorsey. The Information just had a controversial headline talking about how Mark Andreessen and Jack Dorsey are kind of starting the holy war of crypto. What do you think about the competition to invest in this space and whether it'll really be decentralized at all or whether it's just a different group of players owning it?
Yeah, I think the argument really is between like kind of how much decentralization is enough decentralization, right? And on Jack on one side is like, these VCs are funding and owning a large portion of these protocols, so it's not like truly decentralized. And I think Mark's position, I won't speak for him, would be like, well, someone's got to fund these things, and it's like decentralized enough. And I think it really depends how the answer to the question. It really depends on like what your use case is. I think so for something that's like Bitcoin, which is a store of value for this massive amount of people in the world, you really want like a huge amount of decentralization. And I think for something that's maybe more like a game, might be variable how much decentralization you really need, because like how much how important the assets are that there's like true decentralization and no one could ever, take control over this like I think it kind of depends on the use, right? Like DeFi might be like much more security might be the most important thing. For a game, it might fall somewhere in the middle.
Now, you've made a choice fairly early on to build on the Solana blockchain versus Ethereum. Why?
Yeah, well, so, what prevented me from getting into crypto as a builder for the longest time was usability. I was like, I saw Ethereum with interest and invested in Ethereum. Actually, I bought Ethereum, like in 2017. I was like, this is really interesting, but I didn't really see how you could build an application with the transaction throughput of something like Twitch, on it. And so what really got me excited about Solana was, for the first time, I really felt like, normal people could build on top of this, and you could build something that reached a mass audience because the kind of transaction speed and cost was low enough that it made sense for maybe something more like a gaming use case where you might have like many different NFT items in a game, and you might trade in and out of them like very quickly within one playing session. So really it was like a usability, choice, but like at the end of the day, Fractal wants to be wherever game studios want to be, and so our goal is to become multi-chain and expand to everywhere that game companies want to build their products.